Welcome to Business Unveiled Podcast. This is the place where we help overwhelmed, time-starved entrepreneurs like you make the profitable shifts to get more done and get more out of life. I'm your host, Angela Profit, award-winning 8-figure entrepreneur and CEO. And in every episode of Business Unveiled, I'm bringing you conversations that will give you the expertise and strategies that will scale your team and business so you can get shit done. That's GSD in our world. So get your time back and grow a business that helps you be present in your life. Let's do this, y'all. This episode is brought to you by the GSD Academy. This step-by-step business productivity online program will share with you exactly how to shift your mindset, set boundaries, build rock-solid processes, customize your message in order to strategically grow your revenues and get shit done. Visit angelaprofit.com/GSD Academy. Hi, y'all. It's Angela. I'm back for another episode of Business Unveiled. And you are in for a treat today because I'm so excited about our guest today. She's an Emmy Award-winning journalist. She's an international speaker, a coach, and the founder of Speak and Influence. And so, ladies, I know those of you that are listening, you want to know all of this because you reach out to me and ask a lot like, how do you become a woman of influence? And how did you become confident to speak on stage and kind of say whatever you want and you don't care what people think? I think that was like my strong-willed dad raising me, but she is going to like share all of these amazing things with like how to get there, and you can do it. And so it's going to be a little bit of a confidence boost, but I want you to get in the right headspace and quit telling yourself, I could never do that. I can't do it, because she's going to share with us the power of your story. So we are talking to each and every one of you individually today. And so I want you to open your mind and be open to doing new things. So get comfortable being uncomfortable. So I want to bring on, she has the coolest name ever, Bofta Yimam. And welcome to the show. Did I say it right?
You got it, girl. You got it. Hello, everyone. Hello, Angela. Great to be here.
Yay. I'm so excited. So before we jump in and start talking about all the tactics of how powerful each individual person's story can be, take us back and tell us, like, where did you grow up and how have you gotten to where you are today with like all this amazing confidence of being able to be on stage and share the power of your story? How have you gotten here?
Thank you. Thank you again for having me, Angela. Man, I'm going to give you guys the short version because it's been a journey, and it's like, how much time do you have? You know what I mean?
Right?
But honestly, I call it a journey because if you looked at me now and you looked at me back, let's say when I was even 15 or 16, and what I was going through at that time, man, it's like I'm a different person, truly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we evolve into different versions of ourselves, depending on the season, sometimes, depending on the period of our life, depending on what we're going through. And so I am an Ethiopian American. I
Mm-hmm.
grew up in Maryland, and my parents migrated from Ethiopia. And I always say they're very much part of my story, of course, not just because they're my parents, but because I think migration is huge. And they came to this country really hoping for an education and just planned on, Angela, going back to Ethiopia. I mean, that was the plan. Just come for
Really?
your education and just go back. But there
Okay.
were human rights violations that were happening at that time in Ethiopia. So their parents said, just stay a little longer. Well, that turned
Oh,
into years and years and
like
years.
forever.
And other family members came over. And so our home was like a rock for many of our family members who now have kids of their own and have expanded into their own careers and beautiful trajectories. And so I would be remiss if I didn't start my story by just mentioning that, because I think it's huge when you see your parents, even no matter what they were going through, still find a way to give back and to help family members who needed it.
How did you gain the confidence to become a speaker, public speaker? How did you gain the confidence? Like, do you remember the first time you were on TV? Like,
Totally.
How
I tried to avoid it. Do you know that? I got the
no.
job and then
Oh
tried
my
to avoid
gosh.
it.
Okay,
I
tell us.
literally,
Like what
yeah,
happened?
okay, so it's just so many crazy. I could tell you a million stories. I'm telling you. Look, what happened was I got this job after I had sent out. Let me tell you this about this is something that stayed with me is that I'm a persistent person. So
Mhm.
when I was applying for jobs, I applied to more than 100 TV stations around the country trying to get my foot in the door because I didn't have
Wow.
connections or know anyone. So I was really feeling like, wow, I'm feeling dejected. I'm not really getting responses. Maybe I need to go to grad school. So I'm thinking of all these other options, maybe do another internship, did another internship for free. It was doing all these things. And I had graduated and I had traveled and I'd come back and now I was applying and it just wasn't landing. So of course I had to be self-aware to say, well, maybe I need to up my skills. Who knows? I mean, there weren't a lot of people with different sounding names either.
Right.
We really was a different time. And I'm not trying to date myself here, but it was like 2005, 6, 7 more so than
Yeah.
2019, right? So it's different. We
Right.
different landscape. There's less diversity on air even. And
Mhm.
so I remember applying to all of these different TV stations and not hearing anything, like literally hearing silence. Sometimes I'd get a letter saying, not right now. And so I decided to do that extra free internship. So I traveled like 2 hours once a week during the
Oh my gosh.
summertime, doing this internship at a small station. And let me just say this for those of you who may not have a friend in broadcast. So typically when you start now, and if you're doing boots on the ground, I'm talking about reporting, not an analyst, but an actual news reporter, and nothing against analysts, just explaining a little bit different track here. Typically you go to a small town, you start out, you don't get paid much at all, and oftentimes you carry your own camera and you edit your own stories.
What?
Still are live at 5 p.m. It's a little
Okay.
insight there. So I'm gunning for these jobs and not hearing anything. Okay. So you can imagine what that did to my self esteem, right? So
Uh-huh.
here I am trying to stay up as I'm applying to these different places. So I said to myself, you know what? Let me do this extra internship. Maybe I will get in the door that way, like internship straight into the job. It's about 2 hours away from my house. So I ended up doing that for a summer. The news director ended up leaving, but here's how things work when you're persistent. This is why I say you just never know. The anchor
Mhm.
there said, I see you working hard. I see you doing your thing. Would you be willing to move to Georgia? I started my first job there. She
Mm.
connected me with her old boss in Georgia. And he's like, I don't have any, his name was Calvin. He was like, Calvin's like, I don't have any jobs right now, but if it does, I'll let you know. And I said, okay. And so I called him up and then I said, I'm actually going to be visiting a friend in Atlanta soon. Would it be okay if I stop by the station? Because here's what I was thinking, Angela, if I could just
Mhm.
meet him,
Mhm.
maybe I would be at the top of the list because even for those small jobs, there's like 200 people applying.
Yep.
And so I did that. I like literally made up that I was visiting a friend, rented a car there, drove to Atlanta, Georgia.
I love it.
Meanwhile, I'm working side hustles. I don't have I'm not, rolling the dough here, right? So I'm driving to Georgia, driving to from Atlanta to a small town called Dalton. And about several months later, he ended up having an opening. I met him that day. Several months later, he had an opening. And then that's when I actually packed my Honda and drove to Dalton, Georgia, and had my first job there.
Oh my gosh. That
So when
gives me
people see me
chills.
at the
That's
White
awesome.
House now, I'm like, you don't know where I started. You know what I'm saying? It's been a
Yep.
journey. It's been a
Yep.
journey. So I do say that persistence matters. Persistence matters in careers, and it goes a long way in business as well. And that experience in itself, Angela, is how I knew if I decided to do a business, I'm still going to be okay because I will be persistent. Meaning I will be persistent and figure it out, even if it's a outlier way to do it. You know what I'm saying? A little
Mhm.
bit not very traditional. And so that was my first job. And then I kept moving up. I worked for ABC and CBS and kept moving up the ladder and really worked on my stories. Eventually, no longer shooting and editing my own stuff, had my own videographer, all of those good things coming
Mhm.
along the way. And so it really has been, man, so many different transformational moments throughout my career and also, of course, business as well. And I've enjoyed it and it's been so much growth, so much growth.
Mhm.
So That's a bit of my story there. I hope you guys
I
are
love
enjoying
it.
it. Those of you, maybe you're driving or hanging out at home, petting your dog like I do, just sitting there on the couch. That's what I do when I listen to podcasts. At my dog.
So what kind of dog do you have?
Oh, he is a character. He is a poodle mix. He's a rescue. I got him when he was
Oh.
2. Now I call him an old man because he's 6, but and he's 10 pounds and getting fatter. So I'm trying to, he's 10 pounds, but he's small. So, every pound matters now, because
Uh-huh.
it's not good for their little legs. And
It's
so,
not.
yeah, so I got him at 7.5. He was a little bit too small, too skinny. We, got him some food, of course, nutrition and so forth.
Uh-huh.
Happy at 8 pounds, Angela. Now this guy is like 11. I'm like, man, you got to lose some weight, buddy. And he's just
Oh.
so cute, but he's cute. If you guys are on my Instagram, Bofta Yimam, then you'll see him because I give him cameos, give him shout outs.
You'll have to okay, we'll totally put it in the show notes.
Yeah, just look
Um,
for Shadow. Don't pay attention to me. Please look for Shadow.
oh, I have 2
Anyway,
little
I digress.
Malteses.
I digress. I digress. I digress. I'm so
No,
sorry.
I'm a dog person too. So that's why I'm like, "Ooh, what kind of dog is it?" Like, I bet our dogs kind of have Maltipoo, and one is much more like poodle-like, and then the other one's like
Mm.
Maltese-like. But they're like almost 11, but I mean, I've had them, all their life. And so
Oh,
it's
I'm gonna
like the
have to
older
look
they get, yeah, I'm just like, I know
on
every
your
pound matters.
IG.
And now they have to have like little steps to like get up on the couch and get up on the bed,
Yeah, mine
because they're
too.
getting older. Yeah. So I totally get it. But
I
anyway,
just
it's
stalked you on IG to see them. They're so cute. The white one looks like my could be my dog's twin.
oh, so
Oh
I
yeah.
bet there's like some Maltese in it.
It could be. We kind of joke and say it probably is. Since he was a rescue, we won't ever know, but we think his face is a little Maltesey. So,
Oh,
Maltesey. That's what I call
so
it.
cute, so
Yes.
cute.
Yes.
If you're a dog mom, you'll totally get it with our dogs here. So I love it. So
Yeah.
when was the first time? So okay, so you got on TV, which I'm sure really did help like boost your confidence. But as we were talking before we started to record, just like about rude people and trolls and things like that. How do you like go on stage and go on TV, and like are there some things that people can do who want to do some of these things? Guys, listen, ladies, being aggressive is not a bad thing when you're a woman, and being persistent means results to me. At least that's
Mm-hmm.
what I think of.
Mm-hmm.
And so what are some just like headspace things, like how some people, they're like, I do 10 push-ups, or like I do the power pose in the mirror before I go on. Like, is there anything that you do to like make sure that you deliver your message, like when you're going on stage or when you're going on TV?
Yes. Well, here's what I'll say. TV and stage are very different. Somebody can be fantastic on TV and then be on stage and see the audience
Oh,
and shrink. So just want to say that the camera is completely different than a room
interesting.
full of eyeballs staring back at you, in my opinion.
Interesting. Yes. No, that is so. And yes, yes, I
And there are
totally
a lot
agree.
of broadcasters who do not speak on stages.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, they'll do it, here and there because they're part of a community, but they're not
Yeah.
regularly doing it. um, and for a variety of reasons, right? But so one thing I'll say is they are different. So think of them as different mediums, but either one, what you do need to do is slow down. I would say that's the biggest mistake people make on either. So whether it's a stage or TV, is really
Slow
focusing
down.
on slowing down. And here's what we like in confident speakers and confident broadcasters, either one, or if you're being interviewed, even on TV, we like cool, calm, and confident. We are attracted to it because when somebody speaks slowly, we can digest their message. When somebody speaks
Mhm.
too fast, we are so busy trying to keep up and figure out, well, what did he just say? So let the message sit with people, which goes back to what is your message? And are you confident in that message? So, for most people, I imagine your audience, they're looking probably if they're in business or coaches, service providers out there, they're looking potentially to be on stages. Here's what I'll say, whether it's virtual and you're at a virtual conference staring through it to your camera, it's on Zoom or what have you, or if it's when things open up in person and it's in front of thousands of people again at some point, or hundreds of people, either one, you want to get practice in with your message. And you have the luxury of knowing, unlike TV, which you're doing a lot of ad libbing, and in the sense of, you may not know the question somebody might ask you as much. Well, stage, you can really prepare. That's going to help you be
Mhm.
more confident on TV as well. But for most people, I imagine your audience, being on virtual stages and in-person speaking opportunities are really ways where they're looking to grow right now. And
Mhm.
so know that we didn't start out confident. So you hear me now and I'm very confident. But like I said, like that, when I got to that first job in Georgia, I was more than willing to just carry the camera and,
Mhm.
edit and be behind the scenes because it's way more comfortable. And they're like, when are you
Mhm.
going to get on TV? And when are you going to, I'll do it. So I waited like a week before I actually was on air. And then the more practice and reps you get, the easier it's going to be. That's why I tell people, Angela, and you've seen this too, get on podcasts, share your story,
Yes.
get out there, because the more you practice it, the more you get out there and get comfortable with answering questions, the easier it's going to be for you no matter what platform you're on. And so you want to get comfortable with sharing different pieces of your story, which then gets to, well, Bofta, how do I determine what pieces of my story are the ones that people want to hear? So you've got to go back to what value you're giving your audience and knowing your audience and letting that drive you. Because it's a disservice for so many of you to not share what you've gone through because it could benefit someone out there.
Yeah, that's the thing, and it's funny, people will say, "How do you know what to say?" And, like, I'm not even gonna pretend, but in the beginning, like, I hired a coach, like, I
Mm-hmm,
hired a speaking coach,
mm-hmm,
and while I guess, like, one thing that my speaking coach told me, and
mm-hmm,
it really helped me, is that whenever I am speaking to a camera, which that's how it started first, just like doing a video tip series,
mm-hmm.
to pretend as though I was just speaking to a friend, like
Yep,
just
yep.
having a conversation.
Uh-huh.
Now, back in the first 2 years, like there I didn't plan the content with strategy. It was the way he edited it, which I learned that later. And so
Mm-hmm.
he was like, "I just want you to talk. I just wanna let's have a conversation." And that got me comfortable with a camera being in front of my face. And so then when I started to speak, he was like the same thing. He's like, "Just as though we were having a conversation."
Mm-hmm.
And then I was coached on how to make sure that you have actionable items, because in the beginning, like, I would just go up there and talk, which isn't always the best thing, because I'd have people say, "Well, you're very entertaining, but I didn't follow anything that you said. What do you do?"
Yeah,
I'm like,
you need
"What?"
structure and framework. Yeah, you
Yes.
need structure and framework, and a clear message of. I always tell people, think about the destination, Angela, and I think that's probably where you were working on, is what's the destination? Like, where are you taking them? Why should they listen? What's the final destination? In terms
Yes.
of the talk. And so I always tell people, if you're getting on a plane and you're going to California and there's 3 stops along the way, tell people the 3 stops, right? You usually know where you're going to have a layover. So it's
Mhm.
the same thing with the talk. The destination might be California. So you're sharing your 3 boom, boom, boom ways to get to $1 million or to scale or whatever your topic might be out there. That's the destination. We'll tell them the 3 ways to get there, right? To tell
I
them the little
love that.
stops along the way. And when I say that, people usually visually think, oh, right, I need to tell them the street sign, so to speak, tell them the places that they need to stop at to get to the final destination, and visit, right? So just a little bit of an analogy there, but I think everyone gets the point where, we all love to talk sometimes and entertain, but it's different when you're speaking in front of a room and you're the keynote speaker and they're expecting you to
Mhm.
deliver tangible things they can walk away with and now implement. It's different. And that's different from a motivational speaker too. A motivational speaker is just, okay, I'm going to inspire you, I'm going to motivate you, you got to do this, you got to do that. A keynote's really giving you real, I feel like, actionable
Mhm.
things for you to then actually go do as part of like educating you.
Mhm. Yeah, and I've never really thought about it, but it's
Hmm.
so funny because when people reach out, it actually like I don't do when they're like, "Can you come and motivate our audience and like and I'm like, "What? I'm not a like that's not what I do." Which then led me to understand, "Oh, I'm not clear on my website like what exactly
Mm,
I am speaking about."
powerful, powerful.
Which then led us to like, okay, what are so you have a keynote, you can have a signature, and then you can have more like of a panel thing. But if it doesn't, this is what my speaking coach told me. He's like, if it doesn't have to do with these three things, the answer is no, because
Hmm.
that is confusing to consumers if they come and ask you. Like, we used to plan a lot of weddings and events. We don't really do that anymore. Like,
Right.
that was years ago. And while I do coach and consult a lot of people in the creative industry, it doesn't make sense to go out there and talk about planning a wedding when I'm over here doing productivity consulting.
Right.
So, what are your thoughts on, that saying like, all media is good media, good or bad or blah, blah, blah. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Because I know one thing that you specifically talk about is like the impact of visibility on your
Totally.
business. And so if people are so wanting to speak, but they're being invited to speak on something that they really aren't passionate about or they're not doing anymore, like how can you like turn that around or pitch people differently? Like,
Sure.
because the impact of visibility is everything on
It
business,
is.
in my
It is.
opinion. So talk to us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a great point that you brought up, Angela, even your own experiences with that. So let me say this. Most people aren't being hounded to get on the stage, right? Most people have to do
Yeah.
some type of outreach or they have to work on their presence online, which I tell people we live in a 360 world now. So
Mhm.
people land on stages because of who they are online. Back in the day, that's not how it worked because online wasn't as huge. But right now, your online presence matters so much because it can be leveraged. And whether and I say people, you don't have to be on all 20 million platforms, just pick one or two where your people are at, where you're the audience
Right.
you want to reach, right? So at the beginning, here's what I would tell somebody: most people need practice. So you should get on stages, even if it's not exactly what your expertise is in, make it your expertise, like make the topic your expertise, but tell the event organizer, here's what I'd love to jam on. What do you think? I could
Mhm.
relate it to what your, let's say it's about women's empowerment in business and you do, I don't know, productivity. Okay, well, I can talk about productivity within business to help you grow within your first 3 years, right? So you
Mhm.
take something, and Angela has a lot of experience probably now speaking, but for those of you who don't, listen to what their conference theme is about, and ask yourself before you say no. If you need experience speaking, definitely just get out there. The other flip side to think about is if you're a service provider, your clients may be in the audience. So while the theme may not be exactly yours, help make it craft it so it's part of your theme, make it work for that audience, talk to the event organizer, brainstorm with them maybe a little bit, and then present it. Because when you say no to an event, especially if you're starting out in business, you're really saying no to potential future events too, because somebody could see you in that
Mhm.
room and bring you on. I don't know how many times it's happened to me. Somebody saw me speak 2 3 years ago, 2 3 years
Yep.
ago, and they randomly email me, but I won't call it random because I'm going to say it's because I was there 2 3 years ago,
Yep.
right? Or they heard me on even a virtual workshop. And they said, I heard you there. Can you come speak to our audience? And so I've done story and messaging and communications from high level corporate to the beginner business coach at different conferences across the spectrum. But that's because I was willing to craft it to that particular audience, which I don't think enough people do and see the value of. At the beginning, for visibility, get out there. That's what I tell people. Like, don't say no unless it's really something that's horribly not a good fit and it's not going to feel good in your gut to go. Right? It doesn't make
Mhm.
sense at all. But for most people, it's within their playground. They just don't want to steer a little bit and do the work to craft it or to recraft it. So I'll say that for folks who are within the first couple of years, especially. The other
Mm-hmm.
thing to think about is, how are you packaging and positioning yourself and your story? Your story is not separate from you, it's part of you. That would be like me ignoring 13 years of journalism, right? And that's what I see a lot of people do. Well, now I'm this. So they completely ignore that they were a lawyer for 10 years or that they were in a different industry. How can you weave the experiences of the past with who you are today? And
Mm-hmm.
that's really powerful. And I work a lot with language and how you package and position yourself for the stage and for online. What are you saying consistently to your audience, to your point, Angela, that helps them see who you are and what you represent overall?
Mm-hmm.
Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. Yes, very powerful stuff. And so for people that don't know how to have structure,
Hmm.
and sometimes, ladies, we are just too close to it because we think everything is important. At least I
Hmm.
used to. I'm like, no, 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 but that's important. I need to tell them that. But really, it isn't. And so, do people hire you to help them prepare for big keynotes,
Oh,
and
absolutely. Yeah.
you give them feedback to like how
I
to,
look at their keynote. Oh, I look
yes.
at it and I look at their keynote, how they're structuring it, grab my pen, I'll go through it, make edits. I'm all in, when it comes to that. So when someone comes to me, and I've had people who even reached out last minute and I've done private coaching with, and you can always do more when you have time. So time is on your side. If you're not, if you don't have a keynote next week, it's always nice because time is on your side. You can really think about, what do I want to say? Um, so absolutely they do.
So for somebody, is there like your favorite, your top, your number one example of how the power of your story specifically has impacted one of your audience members, or they became a client? Is there like one story that really sticks out there and you're like, damn, I'm so glad that I am sharing the power of my story to help others?
Mm. Oh, I think that, especially with online mediums, I have a Facebook group, and I'm always talking like I'm always talking about a story or sharing it. So it's hard to say exactly which one, but I can tell you that every time I speak, I walk away with a client. May not be in a week, maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks, but I mean, whenever I speak in person, I'm walking away with clients. It's because I know, not just, I think, the power of speaking. I think people actually know that I'm genuine and authentic and that I mean what I say, and I say what I mean, and that statement. But I think when I'm in a
Mhm.
room, especially, I mean, this is a podcast, but when I'm in a room, I think people actually know that I'm rooting for them. I really want people to see the power of it, because there's no way I would be at the success metrics that I have now in my business or in life, period, I think, if I hadn't stepped out, and I call it playing bigger, if I hadn't
Mhm.
done that. And so at the beginning, everything I tell people to do are things that I actually did. I built my business from the ground up. It was through visibility of speaking on stages, because I'd left my full-time career, and getting on stages, getting online, becoming visible, studying, of course, business, but at the same time, all of that visibility and messaging work. And so I am really a proponent. I'm thinking, like, if you're not playing bigger and you're not out there, number one, you're forgetting about the value that it brings to the audience. So that's the first thing I would just tell somebody who wants to speak in that structure you mentioned a moment ago. What value are you bringing to the audience? What's going to be most impactful for them? Take yourself out of it and think about the audience you're speaking to. Are they young business owners? Are they event planners? Who are they? And that's why speaking to event organizers is one of the most underrated things. Too many people say yes to a speaking engagement and don't do the due diligence to actually talk to the event organizers and figure out, hey, where are they? What's the
Mhm.
demographic here? Um, what are their pains? What are their challenges? Because now you can really speak to what's happening in that room, and they'll be like, wow, well, she's in my home or she's in my business. Like, that person knows me. It's because that speaker did the due diligence to find out what was really going on for the folks at that event. So
Mhm.
those are a couple of things to keep in mind for those who want to step into this. The other thing to think about is, what are some of the transformational moments in your life where you truly grew because of what happened? So I had a mental health challenge, right? Other
Mhm.
people, it might be something else. It doesn't mean we're airing all of our dirty laundry. Let me say that, because sometimes people will say, "Well, is that what you mean you want me to do?" No, it's thinking about what would be of value to the audience. What's the reason for you sharing it? Thinking
Mhm.
about, is it for validation? We don't want to just share it for validation. We want to share it because it's going to help someone. And so, what are some of the transformational moments that you've gone through for your listeners here, Angela, that you've gone through that truly changed who you were? And when you think of it that way, there's not 50 million moments, you know,
Right.
there's just not. There's just not.
Right.
And then the other things you're thinking about, I work with experts. And so experts typically learned quite a bit along the way, right, to get where they are right now. And so
Mhm.
that's another story that they'd want to throw in there. So I really think of your keynote as like three different stories tied in with a theme or a message.
So I know in your Facebook group, because you mentioned that, where you help people really understand the power of speaking and the power of influence. And you have 14 strategic ways to land speaking engagements. So if people want, and we'll put it in the show notes too. So, y'all, if you're driving, it's okay. We got you. If people want to learn how to really use the power of their story, if they want to influence and speak, can you give us like the first strategy? And then if you guys want to know the other 13, like you need to go just join the Facebook group. But or is there like a top or favorite strategy that you can tell listeners,
Oh, yeah,
like the
easily.
first way to start?
Easily. And this is going to shock most people because I'm like, what? You just want me to just do that? I don't even know if it's the first thing in the 14 strategic ways. I don't even know if it's the very number one top thing, to be totally honest. Right now my mind needs probably a little bit more coffee. But what I will say is the first thing is you need to tell people that you want to speak. Meaning you need to literally put out a post, send out a text, send out an email. And talk about what you're looking to speak on your message. I've been so excited about speaking about XYZ. I'm looking to speak on more stages in the next boom, 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 whatever, coming months or weeks or whatever have you. But you need to tell people. Too many people say, like, I'm not getting speaking engagements. Are you telling people that you're a speaker? Or are you
Mhm.
assuming that they know that you want to talk about this? That's what I talk about playing bigger. It's way more than just speaking. It's really a mindset.
Mhm.
It's really a mindset of seeing yourself first as a speaker. So call yourself a speaker. Call yourself a speaker. Put it out there. Put it in your titles. Put it out there. And I'm not crazy woo woo, but I'm pretty woo woo in the sense that I do believe the universe backs up our desires with action. So,
Mhm.
when I talk about persistence, I truly am somebody about action. But I also say, you know what? Put it out there. You've got to put it out there. The universe receives a lot of confused messages from folks. People will tell me, say, I want to be a speaker. But at the same time, they'll say, but I'm scared that I might get a troll. You can't have it both ways.
Mm-mm.
So you got to tell the universe what you really desire. If you desire to be the number one speaker in the world, you got to say it, then back it up with action. But start with just saying, I want to be a speaker. And so you'd be amazed at how many people really come to me and they haven't done that critical piece, because that requires a bit of courage if you don't feel like you have everything else together yet, right? Like a talk
Yep.
or an audience yet. Trust that it will come, but start putting your message out there, and the rest will come. And I would say that to anyone. And although I help people with, yes, crafting your signature story and gaining visibility and leveraging your voice online and on the stage, what I really help people do at the crux of it is work on that confidence piece. Because if you want to have impact and spread your message, you got to have some serious confidence and courage.
I'm over here laughing because a mentor and a coach that I had years ago, he's like, "So you guys just do a bunch of weddings?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I mean, we do." But he's like, "Well, do you do other things too? Because I mean, for a wedding, isn't it just like a one off?" And I'm like, well, sometimes, but I mean, we do have returning clients when they get to second and third weddings. He's like, but Angela, that is not the kind of repeat business you want, right? I mean, isn't that kind of weird? I'm like, well, I don't make it weird, but I'm like,
Mhm,
what,
mhm.
why? Like, what? He's like, so you're just going to do weddings for the rest of your life, like one offs. And, at the time, I'm like, I
Interesting.
don't know what next year holds. And so
Mm.
he's like, I want you to think about this differently. He's like, do you do other events? Do you do any type of events? Do you do baby showers? Do you do anniversary parties? Do you do Christmas parties? Like your clients, a lot of them are entrepreneurs. And it's like what you put out is usually what you bring back in. And so he was identifying, like, he saw things that I never thought of ever. And I'm like, yeah, I guess like most of our clients, they are entrepreneurial, they do own businesses. I was in healthcare. And so a lot of my first clients, they were all doctors, they were in healthcare, their kids were getting married. And so he's like,
Mm.
you got to think bigger. And he's like, so are you doing their anniversary parties and their Christmas parties and their open houses? And I'm like, not, no. And he's like, why? You're not telling them. They're coming to
Mhm.
you to just plan their wedding. And then after that, it's like, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, it's over. And he's like, you've got to do a better job of telling people that you will and you want to do these things. He's like, I want you to think about your clients differently. I want you to pick your top 10 favorite clients. And it's great that it's the introductory is a wedding because it's emotional money and
Yeah, they
they
just give it. I just had a wedding. So,
oh, you did?
yeah.
See,
So I'm like,
okay.
yeah, basically, I'm just like, yes, yes, yes. What do you think? Yes. Okay. Yeah.
And I mean, you really lean on that planner. And
You
so
do.
he's like, you
Oh,
already build the respect and the trust, and they know that you work for them and not all the vendors, and you have their budget and their money and everything they want at heart. So it's the best way in to build a beautiful long-term relationship of handling every personal event this person ever has for life. And so I'm
mm.
like, I still wasn't really kidding. I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, Angela, you have 10 life cycle clients. He's like, that means the wedding, they're probably going to have a kid, maybe have a kid. Then that kid has a birthday. Then they're going to go on trips throughout the year. And he's like, I want them to think of you as any personal event they come to you. They come to you, but you need to start telling people that.
Yeah.
And he's like, you
So
don't have to tell them.
powerful.
Yeah. He's like, you don't have to tell them in the very beginning, get through the wedding. And then when the wedding afterwards, you can say, hey, by the way, I know that you have your own practice. And so it was so powerful, like you said to me, because then they're like, oh, well, I didn't know you would do my Christmas party. And oh, I didn't know you would decorate our home for our kid's birthday. But it completely changed my business model. Now, it took me 2 years to kind of get out of that
Right.
because, people would book us 15, 18 months out. And, it seems like such a long time, but you blink your eyes and holy shit, the date's here. So, anybody that is listening, like, I want you to think about these. You just got to think a little bit differently and have an open mind because it literally changed my life. And instead of running on this hamster wheel of doing over 250 weddings, then we
Crazy.
were,
I
yeah,
applaud you.
I mean, I still say today, like, he saved my life because
Wow.
I loved what I did, but you can only do it for so many people before, like, you are run ragged.
Yeah.
And so I learned how to focus more. And if you just say it out loud, consistency. And
Correct.
that's the key. That's the
And
key.
the
You got to be
messaging, right?
consistent.
And I tell people, it's so interesting. I love that story, Angela. It's very powerful because one person can change the way we think and then change our lives, right? But when
Mhm.
I talk to people about crafting your signature talk and your signature story, I tell people that that is now part of the crux of your messaging. So you can take pieces of the talk and it can become social media posts. So everything's not, independent. It's all part of you and your message and what you put out there. And so you're right. What you put out there matters just incredibly. I worked with people who never thought they'd write a book. When they went through the whole program and then they crafted their signature story and they played more, bigger and visible, and they leveraged their voice, they decided I wanted to now write a book, or now they wanted to do some other endeavor. And it's powerful because it started from someone just being really scared about putting themselves out there and then realizing, look, Angela, if there's anything all of us have realized in the past years, we never know when our time is coming. It's a reminder, a really big reminder based on what we've gone through in 2020. What a
Yep.
reminder that if you want to do something, and I tell this to anyone, if you want to do something, you got to do it for yourself now, because you're assuming that everything is going to be just all right for you to hop into in 2021. And it's just not the case. We just don't
No.
know when we're going to be called. And I say this in the spiritual sense of, we don't know when it's
Mhm.
our time, folks. And so, a lot of what drives me is as I really think about that. I
Mhm.
really think about that. And I went through an experience where, when I left my full-time corporate job, I also took care of my dad for a few months before he moved on to the next chapter. He had pancreatic cancer, and I was
Mhm.
working part-time in my business while had left already full-time. So it was a very stressful time, as you can imagine. But it also was that reminder of, like, we just don't know when, not to end on a somber note here, but I say it because I think of that and I think, wow, one, I'm very grateful that I was able to be there for my dad in that moment. But also seeing that, it reminded me that you better do what you want to do on this earth, because you just don't know when our time is going to be called. And so if anyone here needed to hear that, and I say it out of love, like, do it for yourself. Make that action plan and do the action plan, right? Execute it, whatever it is for you. And even if it's not perfect, just put it out there, because you just don't know. And we just all assume, and all of us, including myself, we just all assume we're going to be there for retirement, we're going to be there for this or be there for that. I mean, I got married during a pandemic because I said, I don't know. I don't know who's going to be around in a year.
Mhm.
And, that's it. We did it.
That's amazing.
I
Well,
planned it
and
at 6 weeks. By the way, you'll
oh
appreciate
my
that.
oh my god, we have to talk about this. Like, well,
By
first,
the way,
congratulations.
yeah, shout out to Yodi, my wedding planner. But yeah, it was like
Oh,
6 weeks.
yay.
Yep, and I tell you, everyone enjoyed it, and I'll be posting on IG the video. They just released it today, but I say
That's
that to say,
amazing.
what drove it is just me thinking, like, man, well, what do we, if we wait for 2021, how do we know it's going to be any better for people to gather? We just
Right.
don't know, is my point, and I hope that inspires someone on this podcast who's listening, who's hanging out, having their coffee,
Mhm.
maybe walking around the house, maybe you're wiping down your counter and you stop and you think, man, I really want to do that thing, whatever it is. And I hope it just gets you going to think, what is the worst case scenario? And usually it's not that bad. You know that, Angela. It's not
Mm-mm.
that bad. Whatever we paint in our minds, it's just worst case scenario is just not that bad. It's okay. Like, you can do it.
Yeah, you just have to get started.
Yes.
You just have to start. And it's like, if
Love
you
that.
sit around thinking, oh, I'm going to wait for this, or I'm going to wait, guess what? It's never the right time, or it's never
Mhm.
the best time. You have to make it your time. Just like you just said, it really does. What do you want to do for you? And how do you want to impact others? So this was so powerful and so amazing. And I want to see your wedding pictures. I want to see your wedding video. That's amazing.
I'm gonna post it. I posted the photos like a couple weeks ago, but I'm gonna post the video. So yeah, as a wedding planner, I will definitely love your input, because we, like I said, we put that bad boy together quick. It took all of me. But you know what, I told somebody, if I didn't have a business, I don't think I could have done it that fast, because I was able to step away and do
Uh-huh.
things and run around. And if I had a 9 to 5, I just think I would have been I would have gone crazy, trying
Yep.
to plan it that quick. But thankfully, I could. I mean, that's the beauty of having a business. Sometimes is I could step out of it. And I was so thankful that I
That's
could step
awesome.
out and just, help kind of get her done, as they say, right? So get it
That's
done.
right.
So,
That's what we say in the South all the time. Get her done.
get her done. I know. I used to live there, so I'm like, I get it. I get it. I took some key phrases. So, but it's been awesome. I mean, Angela, I love what you're doing on IG. I told you that when we were even not recording. That I love
Thank
that
you.
you're out there and you're so visible, and I think that's such a great example to your audience.
Yay. Well, guys, I know you had lots of actionable takeaways today. And so we will put it in the show notes. Be sure to check out the Facebook group and just stop by, say hello. Let us know your speaking goals
Yes.
and how you want to start getting out there, because you just have to start somewhere.
If anyone out there is looking for a dynamic speaker for your organization or
Yes.
your business, definitely email me. It'll be in the show notes, or you can Facebook or LinkedIn message me. My name, no one else has it, Bofta Yimam.
You are
And
the only one, girl.
I think I'm the only, but I would love to learn more about your organization and how I could potentially help by speaking to them virtually or in person in 2021.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being on the show
Thanks,
today.
Angela. Appreciate you.
Everybody that's listening, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for listening. And be sure to tune in next week to another episode of Business Unveiled. Bye, everybody. That's it for this week's episode of Business Unveiled. Now that you have all the tools that you need to conquer the world and GSD, get shit done, would you share this with your friends and fellow business leaders? One thing that would really, really help us and help new listeners is for you to rate the show and leave a comment in Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you tune in and listen to Business Unveiled. You can check out the show notes at angelaprofit.com/podcast and link up with us on social media so you can share your biggest insights. And I want to know your aha moments. Until next week, remember, the profitable shifts and structures you're creating in your business help you be more present in your life. So get out there and GSD.